jest Polska Agencja Kosmiczna. Bardzo cieszę się, że Kinga jesteś z nami.
Okay, the question is if all the meeting will be in Polish. No, Frederick, don't be afraid. We just started from Polish and we will twist into English right now. Michael, the floor is yours and we are waiting for presentation. So maybe you can start from introduction and a short small talk with Frank and other guests.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also that I will be joining. Maybe I manage the technical system. We in space are good. We like also situations which are putting a little bit of pressure, and then we see how we react. So thank you for the invite. It's great to be with you. It's late in the night, so I hope everybody has a glass of wine or beer because I think this we deserved after a long day. But can we do just a check when we're sharing the monitor? If you see me, let me see.
Yes.
You see something now, huh?
Yes.
Perfect. So at least something. So where I try to learn a little bit Polish, we managed to see our. Okay, but I'm handing over you, Michael, to the moderation.
Okay, so I will start with some short introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to host Frank Salzgeber, the head of Innovation and Venture Office at the European Space Agency. I met Frank for the first time at Demo Day of the Space 3AC program, acceleration program in 2017. I had there a short presentation connected with Industrial Development Agency activities for Polish space sector. And then I mentioned that the ministry has just appointed us to carry out the procedure of selecting the entity that will establish ESA BA in Poland. And just 2 minutes after the presentation, I was connected by LinkedIn with Frank, and also he sent me some very useful information on how to conduct the procedure, that it will be proper with the ESA regulations. So 2 minutes after presentation, I already had very useful information. So that shows that Frank is really a man of action, which is confirmed by all his achievements. And now, as a head of Innovation and Venture Office, Frank is overseeing the largest space entrepreneurship network in the world. His team has initiated over 360 industry transfer, supported nearly 1,000 startups. He also, or his office, supports the exploitation of ESA patent portfolio and promotes the ESA business application offer, which have also supported additionally over 600 business cases. And in next 3 years, the ESA space solution will invest more than 200 million euros in seed, and all this with the leadership of Frank. Additionally, Frank is member of Board of Directors of European Business Network and European Business Angel Network for Space. Maybe some history. Before the innovation of, he was the head of Innovation and Venture Office. He was the head of Technology Transfer and Business Incubation Office, and earlier the head of Commercial Development of Human Spaceflight and Exploration at ESA. And altogether, he have more than 17 years work at the European Space Agency. But his professional experience is also very impressive before work with ESA. I will mention just two. He was the founder and chief operating officer of IT startup that headquartered in Munich, and then company was finally merged with company providing digital transformation service. Earlier, he was account and sales manager responsible for Central Europe and education markets at Apple, at that time Apple Computer. I would like to point out one more thing, that Frank has a technical background. He has a degree in industrial engineering, so it's important for me because I also have technical background. And I think in some cases it's not an advantage to have such background in case of career path related to business incubation. And as a summary, a few numbers describing plans that are implemented this year only by Frank's office. His team will continue to support 220 new startups through over 23 ESA BIGs in over 60 locations in Europe, and it should create over 600 new jobs. We look forward to join this network with ESA BIG Poland, and we will be very happy to be included in this statistics. I try to describe Frank's achievement as briefly as possible in order to quickly get to the main point. And the main point is that we need more space. So Frank,
very good.
The screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Michael. So first, long history, and trust me, it makes somebody old, you know, when you go all through, because Apple and all the startup is 15 lives behind me. Nevertheless, it's great to work with you, and we're also looking forward to have Poland as in our incubation big family. And it's not my achievement; it's the achievement of my team, of my colleagues, I have the pleasure sometimes to solve some of the problems which is there. I also have today should be a special guest. One of my previous bosses, Alberto Tobias, should be there. Alberto, if you hear me, thank you so much. He was giving me a lot of support, and I remember one of his saying, "Frank, I only shout to the people which I like." So, but this was good because we really had problems in the agency which we had to solve, and he was a very big supporter of the success we have now. So, okay, yeah, now he's joining. I brought you something a little bit what motivates me, why I'm in space. Maybe some of people have seen some of the slides, so forgive me that. What space is doing now, some of the hints, especially when we have companies which are touching a little bit the space industry, and then I brief up what we're doing a little bit and what motivates me today, and maybe you have a similar motivation. Should we do it like this? So I share my screen. If you give me the let me see the screen, you should see now a black screen. Is that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So then I run the show. We have a quick question answer later, but let's start. And when we're looking about what motivates us and what drives us, and there was a nice saying in the Stanford speech of Steve Jobs, which of course I was always watching, working for Apple, and I had the pleasure to meet him several times. And he said, "The dots of your life connecting backwards, never frontwards." And I think all of you, when you're looking back in life, there were certain things which motivates you, me, others. And one person was my first hero when I was 9 years old. And my first hero was blue and 3 centimeters high, which was in that time a Lego astronaut, which is a small figure. Let me see why it's not working. I'm here on the right thing. Now it should work. So this was the thing, you know, and 81 was the time where the Columbus shuttle was starting. The space series was coming out 78. So I was 9 years old, and I do remember there was a white one, a gray one, a transparent one, yellow one, but only blue one. Blue one was the boss, and I think I still have one. All the other stuff, my 2 boys, my twins, have nicked it. And that was the time when the shuttle was coming. And as I said, the Columbia shuttle was starting 81, which was an amazing thing because that was a proper spaceship. And the shuttle Columbia sadly was distracted by re-entry in February, 1st of February 2003. So therefore, I think motivation and curiosity and what we're doing is driven by people, even when the people are 3 centimeters old. And when we're looking to that time, when I remember now to my time, we had the best dreams we ever had when we were young because we didn't thought about limitation. And to get the experience, this was my moon base. You know, they had walking robots, they had spaceships, and I was even drawing this. So that was my world. And I thought that this is the future. Later, Star Wars was coming up. And I really thought with Star Trek, Star Wars, we will find different planets and so on. And what we got in between was Facebook and Twitter. So somehow, when we're looking back, they cheated us a little bit with our dreams, maybe. But nowadays, looking at them, and I never have thought about to join ESA if not a headhunter would knock on my door and say, have a look on that. And so the things maybe come together. this is important because it drives also our startups. It drives our innovation, things which is built on dreams. And maybe you have a similar feeling where there's occasion when you're on. Frank Salzgeber is my name, and I think we need all more space. And when you see all the flags on below, these are our member states. These are our shareholder, where we have the responsibility to invest the money from our member states countries very, very wisely. And we do 4 things, which I explain a little bit later. One is business application, where we support SMEs, existing industry, business incubation, where we started very small 15 years ago and 16 years ago. And trust me, in that time, startups in space, big primes were not even laughing about us. Now that has changed. We still support a little bit the tech transfer. My ex-boss Alberto would be happy, because business incubation is now really optional funded. So every member state who wants to have that can really join the club and can scale and can put a little bit more on it. When we look about innovation in general, and I think that's a little bit the advice also I brought out, what are our findings, which we had over the last years, my team, that's the great part of that job. You speak with a lot of people in oil and gas, in real estate, in banking business, in the military, different governments across the world. So you see a lot of different flavors and different approaches, but you realize it boils down with a lot of things. And there was one gentleman, which is Jim March, which was a professor at Stanford, and sadly he died. And he had a very nice, let's say, philosophy how you approach innovation. And he said, you have to balance exploration and exploitation. You know, words which are very similar to our daily business, especially to space. So exploration means you do risky things. You, Neil Armstrong, Sir Edmund Hillary in Norway, going to the Mount Everest, going to Mars, going to the moon. Exploitation, there's something we know out of oil and gas. That makes product better, planes lighter, cars more efficient. So exploiting is not risky. It's the short term what you're looking. Exploration is the long term. In the long term, we explore. In the short term, we exploit. And this goes even back to us as human beings. When we're young, we explore every day because we are kids and we're looking with our curiosity. When we become older in age, we exploit because we have more to exploit in our brains. A CEO of a startup company, as well as a big corporate, have the same problem. They have to balance both. And it's very hard to balance that in one person. We will see later what is the impact. And this is the balance which we also in every organization have. This is the reason why we have big funding programs, but still working with startups, because we have to balance it. And it's very, very hard to bring that balance. Space. This is space of the past. It's the satellite dishes, it's the telecom industry, broadcasting. And we have companies like SA Astra with some 1,600 people, 1.8 billion revenue, having 45 satellites, covering 99% population of the world. And when we look into that business, the last couple of years, the video part, the telecommunication, TV part is going down. If they're lucky, they're stable. Why? Because your kids or my kids, they watch Netflix, YouTube. They don't watch the normal TV channel. What is raising up is internet. It's telecommunication. So I'm speaking now about the 3 pillars where space makes the difference. The 3 pillars of space, which are the base of the digital economy, which we have at the moment. And this space, and I give you a good example of a company which is in Germany, which I think has still not got everything what space is doing. So Deutsche Telekom, this is the CEO of Deutsche Telekom. They make big revenue, 80 billion, 32 countries. And in summer, I give you an example, what is our problem also in Europe. I have a house in the mountains, and there was where I work also. And I have the problem because my copper line was broken. It took them 2 months to repair a copper line. Digitalization will not work in Germany when you need 2 months to repair a copper line. Even when the state is really invested there with 32%. And they are around and saying, we are the best 5G network. And then I say the best 5G network, where? Well, because when we look into the map of the world, and there you see a part where you have GSM connection, and the yellow is 3G, which maybe has 9%, 8% of the world. How much percentage coverage of the world will be 5G? 4, 5, 3? And then my question is to all the people in the world on the rest of that part, is nobody flying, shipping, walking, hiking? The connectivity of 5G everywhere in the world, which is becoming $1 trillion market in the next 20 years, will be done by satellites. It's the mega constellation which connect the last billions. Why is that important? Because connecting the people everywhere, especially in poor countries, education comes with connectivity. Education means out of poverty. Education means also maybe different governmental system. So this is the reason why we have companies like SpaceX with Starlink, but also French startup company, Kineis, which just raised this year 100 million. It's the Internet of Things. It's the connectivity which we will have everywhere, which is possible because the satellites are flying low Earth orbit. And it will become much cheaper because it will need less power. So 5G from satellite, this is the big new revolution in telecommunication. And it's already there. There's a reason why ESA builds a laser communication backbone in the sky, because normal broadcasting will not do that. And we will need that for everything, for our cars, for our trains, for our planes, for our tractors on the fields, and even for our Industry 4.0 equipment, which we were building. Some companies have already heavily invested in that. And they're not only looking for the communication, they are interested in the data. And there was something which not everybody really heard. It was 2 years ago. It was Amazon Web Servicing saying, we build ground station. We connecting the machines, we connecting the data. ESA alone is producing 15 terabytes of a day, and we have about 350 terabytes of distributed downloads per day. We have 15 Earth observations in orbit, 40 under preparation, under development, and 15 under preparation. Why is that so important? It's the second pillar which I want to share, because it gives visibility. If there's a president say there is no deforestation, and the director of INPE, which is the National Institute of Space Research, he's not the director anymore, Ricardo Galvano, he said, look to the images, there is deforestation. So you cannot cheat from space because we see what you're doing. Another way how you can see that is using radar images. And there's a nice tower, I don't know if you mentioned, were there's the Millennium Tower in San Francisco, built 2009, 58 floors high, 200 meters. And I was there last year, and I met even a guy which had an apartment there, because you have a great view to Treasure Island, to the Oakland Bridge, costs millions normally things. And I asked him, I said, did you bought the apartment? He said, I'm not crazy. You know what? Because this tower is sinking since the beginning 40 centimeters. So we were flying with our Sentinel-1 satellites in February 22nd, 15 and 20 September 2016 over it. And we can see really every building which is moving or sinking. Red dots is bad. Orange is already dangerous. Green is great. And this you do for the entire city. So before you purchase something in the real estate industry, you check that your building is not moving. But Earth observation has even much more, because it gives you insight. There's a company, Airbus is involved, which is called Orbital Insights. You can count how many cars and lorries are moving from the parking lots to A to B, which tells you exactly what are the customer frequencies at Walmart or at IKEA. And you can have an insight which gives maybe on the earnings next quarter, all done by space. So the good thing is that these images are available nearly for everybody. And the big difference is that are not recorded in a difficult way. So you have companies like Up42, Cloudeo, Sentinel Hub, where you program your APIs on these cloud platforms and getting the data per email. So the time from one-to-one, very specialized applications to go really to big data where you superimpose different data layers, they have started. The third pillar is, of course, navigation, GNSS. And some people always ask me, Frank, why we need Galileo? We have GPS. And then my question is always, which signal you would trust? Or other way around, which country you would trust to manipulate the signal for the military or economical purpose? The Russians, the Americans, the Chinese, or the Europeans? Europe is built on cooperation. I'm only joking. We don't even have the time to find common sense before we manipulate the signal. No, just kidding. But it's really, we are built on cooperation. Therefore, we are the only signal, I believe, which is really trustable. Why we need that? Not only to navigate your cars or your airplanes. Your electrical grid, the synchronization, is done by the time signal of the navigation signals. Bank transactions using the time signal. Even the cell phone master, the access points, using to synchronize the time signal. So it's about time. It's not only about position. And therefore, that's so important. And today, if you need a satellite or a component, just to go on to our companies, the Cubesat shop, or SatSearch is another one. And if you want to build your satellite, they have all what you need. It's a catalog of parts. So Cubesat shop, SatSearch, both of startups we have supported. And you see what is going on. It gives transparency on the market. And if you don't have our own rocket, which normally appears fine, there's HostMe. These two gentlemen have founded that company, and it's a kind of, as I would say, a Tinder, space Tinder for payload. They find you the payload. It's like the ride share. And if you don't have a rocket, it's one of the stumper companies we have supported, Iza Aerospace. They just raised 18 million, and they built a 22-meter launchers near Munich. And it's one of the fast-growing startup companies we have in Germany. So there are about 100 people and hiring. Great. I think Bavaria only had 3 launcher companies. And this will come, especially for the micro launchers. And the prices will go down. And startup companies also have the chance to beat the big ones. This is a company called ClearSpace. Maybe you heard about them. Hugh, on the right, is one of the satellites he wants to capture. It's a big Switzerland startup company, which had about 500,000 venture funding, spin-off from APFL. And they signed, I think last week, a 100 million contract with ESA. It was last week. And they are the prime and Airbus is the subcontractor. So things are changing and gives us new opportunities. And I think one of the masters in classes, D4 gentlemen, which are the founders of Lilium, they raised over 350 million already. There are 400 people and they make flying electrical and make it as cheap as a taxi ride in New York, outside of Munich. And I remember when we had the selection, and in the selection board, these 4 gentlemen were pitching the ideas, and one of the members said, Frank, but they want to do competition to Airbus. I think they will fail. And I said, if we do not support them, who else does? We supported them when they were not even a company. Now they don't need our help anymore because they're grown up. So we're very proud of them. If they manage or if they fail, does not matter. But we increase the likelihood of their success. And I think that's as important. A little bit companies which we supported in the past, they're not even all. But the lessons learned, what we have there, and that's the good news, which is different from 10 years ago, where even we were in a limited partnership of a venture fund, which not worked, to get 1 or 2 million at the moment. And this is only the companies in Germany, because I don't want to show entire Europe, because otherwise it would look even too good. To find 1 or 2 million is not an issue. If you don't find 1 or 2 million, then something is wrong. You speak either with the wrong people, or you are the problem, or your product is the problem, or the business model maybe is the problem. The tickets between 20 and 10 million, that's something where you have to go a little bit more Europe. The problem is really the tickets above 50 to 100 million, because we don't get that in Europe. And I think this is what we have to work. So what are the lessons learned from that? How we get our new ideas, which is not easy. I think we have to welcome challenges. We have to search for it. Yeah, we have to have the moonshot programs. We need innovation. We need crazy ideas. And this starts in the board, not with the student. The student has to be pushed by the board member. We really have to welcome always challenges. Otherwise, and don't make this experiment because it's a nasty one, the bee tries always to escape to the sun. If you hold a glass with the bee and the bottom to the sun, the bee always tries to go to the sun. But the escape might be in a totally different way. Because the bee has no plan B. It's in her DNA, in its DNA. And I think we are better. We can have a plan B, C, and do something else. And this is most of the time the business model. It's not the technology. We have great engineers coming from great universities and our startups, where they had most of the time the problem is the business model, and they had to change that. Be ahead of crisis. And everybody who is doing sport knows that if you are in a marathon or in a sprint, if you're the first, it's easy because you time it and the people are behind you. If you follow, you're always out of breath. If you're before the crisis, you can work with your people, lower down a little bit the manpower. If you're in the crisis, you have to lay off. You just react. You cannot be innovative if you are in the crisis. Before the crisis, yes. And it does not matter if it's an hour, if it's a day, 1-3 seconds is good enough. Therefore, thinking to be ahead of time. Alan Grove, the founder and the later CEO of Intel, once said, as a CEO, you have to be paranoid. And you don't have to be years ahead. You have to be little ahead. I think the panic is maybe wrong. Paranoid is not so bad. Think about multiple timescales. And I think that is, I take that always with the view of the Catholic Church, which transferred one of our software for their historical book with the Vatican Library. I like when you think in more timescales. And a lot of people say, nobody does it. And I say, it's not true. The church does it. Every farmer who has a forest at home or owns a forest, every family thinks in multiple timescales. Because the plant of a tree which puts in the ground is not harvested by him, not even harvested by the kid, it's the grandkid who's harvesting it. When you go to the bank, you get a loan for 20 years. That's a long time. And this is also what we see in our startup companies. Software is okay, but hardware is hard. It takes time. It takes sometimes 10 years to be successful, especially in hardware. And space might be even more harder. So you need long-term partners. It's not the quick money, which is easy to get. So therefore, think a little bit more time scales, and then you also automatically become sustainable and all the new buzzwords which we have. If you think long-term, it will have an impact. Like we do as parents. We're raising our kids and don't think about the return right away. If we are doing well, we get a visit at Christmas, at Hanukkah, or Ramadan, or a card or a phone call. Then we know that we have done things correctly. Being skeptical of success. There's a saying, and normally as an Apple employee, I don't quote so many times Bill Gates, but Bill has said it very nicely. Success is a lousy teacher. It tells people, smart people, to think that they cannot lose it. And that's the case. I would always say, if things go too smooth, there's something wrong. With the words of our old Director General, Jacques Dodan, and forgive me, I tried to imitate his French accent. He was on the way out, and then he said to me, Frank, I'm a mechanical engineer. Mechanical engineering, if you do something new, you have friction. If you have no friction, we do something wrong. So friction is part of the game. And Alberto knows very well how much friction we had. But it's a good sign that you do things right. If you got a letter from a lawyer, from the competition, that you should stop that, damn, you're on the right track. Friction is part of the game, and it's a good sign. Therefore, my good advice, and that is the job title before I go in retirement or even after, I want once to have in my life, and every company organization should have that. It's the Chief Devil Officer who puts the finger into the right place where it hurts and saying, we should change that. That's bad. Let's make it better. Not in the negative, but bringing the friction into the system where it needs it. This we don't do, but what we do for our startups, and there's a nice Irish saying which says, on the shoulders of the giants you see further. like parents, we help our startups. We help them climbing on our shoulders. And I think this is what I want to have. This is the only homework I have for you. Help the colleagues in the ESA big network, which we're building up in Poland, to be one of these giants. Help them to grow your environment together, and you will get a great return. Great partners, you will get trust, you get innovation from the outside. And I think this is something we can all do. And if you do this job, you will be rewarded. This is my motivation, why I'm still sitting on that post, because getting from Luke, from Clear Space, a letter for the ESA big and to me and to my team, and thank you us, that they would be not there signing the contract with ESA without our support, then you know you have done something right. These are my motivations, my two boys. And startup creation and support, and as innovation support, is like raising kids. And their problem is, the only thing is, if there's free Wi-Fi, and what is the speed of the Wi-Fi? And I think this is what we have to learn also when we speak about innovation and innovation support. It's this funnel. You start with the detection of a lot of ideas, the Galileo Master, Copernicus Master, InnoSpace, Act in Space, which we supported from the beginning to make it international, getting the right things, helping to make a company, helping with the business incubation, coming then with the demo studies, if there are SMEs, and the acceleration, even with the international scale. And we working with the colleagues in Singapore. We have across the world. We're helping our colleagues in Israel with their space startup program for space. Come on, what a great job. And this is the umbrella what we do. And I said, investment forum, business application, incubation, but we would be not good at all if we would not have that big network. So, and this was one of the network meetings where we're still allowed to travel. It's about smart people, make the difference. The ETH Zurich, STFC, ARP, Fraunhofer, University Graz, Nova Business School, name them all. In Sweden, in Norway, everywhere. And I think this is something, the network which makes a difference. So what is missing there are the dots in Poland, which we're working on, and Romania and Greece. So by end of beginning, I would say, of next year, I hope that in all ESA member states we have dots. And there's a queue of outside non-ESA member states which would love to be a partner with us. Why? Because this is built on cooperation. We do not want to move companies from A to B. We want to build on cooperation, which is difficult in these new normal times. And also their observation gives us the visibility what is changing. And the customers are at home. We cannot meet with a nice drink in Warsaw, which is a pity, but I think we can make that up in a couple of months and celebrate maybe the opening, which is missing because you build on existing partnerships in trust relations. But find new partners, it's very hard. It's very hard. And for the airline industry, it's much harder. That was in April 21st. And there's the wrong date, of course. It should be 20. And where we see, you know, all the cars are gone. So this was April a year ago, and this was March this year. And you see the difference. All the customers park the car are gone. Parking lot is empty. So look into the crisis, and many people maybe said that. What we see there are lemons and lemonade. And my grandma, and maybe as others said, how to make out of crisis something good. Every crisis you have to use to make something good. So some people see lemonade and lemons, so we see opportunities. For some people, this crisis is a threat, but we have to see opportunities. For some, they see competition, but I do see new partners. And some people see maybe only software which can solve that, like Zoom, but we should see new products and new solutions. I was 2 years with the military, and all our astronauts, most of them are coming from the military area. And Thomas Reiter, which the phone call this Monday, also Air Force General, and all of them, they have to do a survival training. And in the survival training, you plan your resources. That's the first thing, because you do not know how long the crisis will take. You act immediately. You do not wait. When we look into the crisis, our startups, most of them have acted immediately from one day to another. The bigger organizations were taking longer. And that starts also with internal, I would say, mechanisms. This is Mr. Kuhnheim. And Mr. Kuhnheim was from 1970 to 93 CEO of BMW. This gentleman had made BMW big again. And he said very nicely, 80% of the problems and questions are about people. The rest is about technology and finance. And he started to do something. Memos have one page, because it's much harder to write one page than writing 20 pages. So it's about the focus. What is really important? And if you had more than one page, you made a shortcut, not read. The second time when you had that, not read. And the third time was not possible because HR got a copy and you were not part of BMW again. He made BMW out of the crisis and made BMW, the Americans say, big again. So I think this is also a lessons learned. Don't use the crisis to write 20 pages. Focus on the right thing. So that's Marek. He was the big manager in Prague. Now he is sitting in New York and his wife is working for the United Nations. Our startups were adapting quickly. Our partners, quicker. ESA was taking a little bit more long time. So it's B2B, how we can keep alive. That really is hard, but networks helps. And I think this is also what we have. We have to rely on our partners. We are not alone. We're not alone in that situation, in that problem. And therefore, I think the younger generation will manage. We don't have that at the moment. We will have it back again. But we have to really think holistic. There's a nice saying, and sorry to use so many sayings, in the mountains we say, when you go fishing, you have to take care that the worm on the hook is tasty for the fish, not for the fisher. In government organizations, sometimes it's tasty for the fisher. And this is the reason why it's not work. Therefore, customer comes first. And we have to learn with mistakes. And this is my son Johannes when he was a little bit younger, 5 years old, and he was the first time on the red slope. He was falling down, standing up, falling down, standing up, falling down, standing up. And at the end of the day, you see him still smiling. And I'm still using that picture because he has no fear and little respect. So it's about the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square hole, as the Think Different campaign of Apple was stating once, which are not respecting the status quo. We have to search to them and we have to help them. And when they fall, we have to say, stand up, I'm still here. Because entrepreneurship is not a sprint, and entrepreneurship is also not a marathon. Entrepreneurship is a decathlon. You have to take care of your product, you have to fundraise, you have to build up your team, you have to bootstrap, you have to scale. And this is where we want to help. We're the big ones to help, where we are great to have ARP as a partner. And the good news to all, it's the decade of space. There was no better time to be part of the space industry and community than now, because we will solve certain issues. Space is the backbone of the new digital economy. And for the other ones which think further, today, the European Resources Institute was announced in Luxembourg. We can still occupy Mars. It's another dream. But a bad dream, hopefully we can all avoid, is this one. Let's keep space peaceful. Norway is still ruling or protecting a group of islands called the Svalbard Islands. And this treaty, making Svalbard neutral, the Svalbard Treaty was signed on 9 February 1920. So every country who signs the Svalbard Treaty is allowed to enter to Svalbard without a permission or a visa and can work there. It's peaceful, it has the highest environmental standards, and it's really protecting the environment. I think that would be a good solution for space. Space belongs to mankind or humankind and to all nations, and not for military actions. Or with Mr. Hawkins, when he was 2017 flying on the 0G, and he holds the chair of Isaac Newton, and he even had Apple with him, to confine our attention to terrestrial matters would be limiting the human spirit. or look to remember to the stars and not down to our feet. Therefore, I conclude why we need more space. That was Johannes when he was 1 year old, dismantling my toolbox in my holiday house in Croatia. Where is the curiosity where we had our kids? Our kids are curiosity per default. Let's find that back. Stay curious as our kids, because that's the driving motivation why we explore. This is the driving why we create new products. And this is the spirit what we need to have back. I'm closing my presentations very often with a nice picture from Mars Express on the way to Mars 2003. On the one side, you see Earth, on the left side, on the right, you see the moon. And a lot of you have seen that, but I'm always showing that still, because Mars Express was turning back. And we don't know this picture. We know the moon in the night sky when we see it in the evenings, or the Apollo ones. But this view we do not know. And sometimes we need a little bit more space in our mind to see the business you need to get your business off the ground. Thank you very much for your attention. Good.
Thank you very much. I think we can start with the Q&A session. Maybe we can start with our special guest. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. Later we will jump to the question from all the participants. So who's first?
You decide. You're the mastermind.
Yes, but you have to sign, maybe a hand, raise your hand to see. Okay, Professor Majnowska.
Okay, hello. It was so inspiring. Well, you know, I noted so much from your speech, and you said many things that it's more like philosophical than just presenting the business opportunities. You said, for example, that the space needs crazy ones, but of course, it needs crazy but educated ones. So because I'm a professor at the university, I would ask you something about the education that it's most suitable, or the crazy ones would need the most. What would you say as a hint for us?
I totally agree. Do you need to? I take the example of ClearSpace. When Hugh was coming as this, they had this idea, but it was not structured. And the CEO Hugh was coming, and he is good. He's an engineer, but he had a vision. And I think it was the first startup company building spaceships, and hired a designer, because he said, why our spaceship has to look shitty? Yeah. And this is a startup from the out of Lausanne. Yeah? So, which I think the lessons learned is, and you know that maybe in your area, the best party is not the party where you know all the people since 20 years, because then it's boring, because you know all the jokes. The best party and the teams are the mixed pickles team, when you come from different areas. A lot of innovation, when we look in history, is done on the edge, on the borders, where you had different specialists coming together. And I think this is what, when we look into space and when we look into the industry, space is in medical, space is in autonomous driving, space is in telecommunication, aviation. So I think you need both. Yeah, as I said, you need specialists to make the thing flying, because 3% is the payload, but you also need people to say, why not turning it around? And I think this is this fruitful friction, which you also need and I think this you have to educate. This is the reason why I believe that maybe the Chinese system is not the right one, because the people are not trusting each other sometimes. Yeah, and I'm not a specialist in the Chinese system, don't get me wrong, but trust is a super important part of innovation. And I think this is where in the Europeans, we kill in kindergarten is fine. Our schools are the 13, 12 degree kill the innovation will, and the university tries to bring back creativity to the people. So I think the problem is not the university part, it's the school where it becomes better, because you get your marks by repeating facts. It's not about understanding the system, it's about repeating facts. If you're a good repeater, you get good marks. If you're a little bit crazy, but understand the connections, you get back marks. because maybe also the teacher. Universities are different because you want to have students which understand the system and work with that. And I think that would be my answer. So we have to start in the universities, we have to start in the companies. Of course, you need specialists, because also from the technology part, you need people which are specialists. Maybe they can be focused, but I think it's a mixture. And this is also the success of companies later.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Cooperation, trust, and
leadership.
Yeah, leadership, the specialists from different areas cooperating, yes, with each other. We cannot do space.
How many leadership is in the engineering degree? How many hours? In my university, 0. So this is the reason why we're working with the University of the Forces in Germany, because they, trust me, for their officers in general, they have good leadership courses. Yeah, and this is the reason why, for example, in Israel, a dear friend of mine, Yossi Smoller, he set up the incubation centers there, and asked him years ago, how many percentage of your CEOs are ex-officers? He said 85, like me. Good education, technical innovation, and it's a lot about trust. Yeah? And I think this is very difficult. If you do not trust your colleagues and in the system, you will not propose crazy ideas.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Magda. Jabłońska, please.
Thank you, Frank, for great presentation and for motivating all of us to keep the pace and building on the trust and collaboration. You mentioned that to be successful as a so big, we need this collaboration and we need this trust, because it's a globe for sure. And what would you advise to SOBIC Poland, how we should grow the community, how we should build the partnership, because it's a community of different stakeholders and everyone needs to be rewarded at some stage. So you said that we all will be rewarded someday, yeah, but what would you advise us how to start to have a good mindset with that?
And now, Alberto, I'm sure you will laugh. I think you have to be patient, which is definitely not my strength. You have to be a little bit stubborn, because if you will serve all the stakeholders, especially the political ones, it's everywhere in the same Europe. Huh? Don't do that. Go your path, and it takes time. That's the reason why we sign also the contracts 5 years, because it takes 3-4 years until you have the first result. You will fall. In the beginning, before, there's another nice thing, before you share the skin of the bear, don't share the skin of the bear before you shoot the bear, you know? And I don't know if something similar, but it takes time. So you have to say, it takes time, and you have to be stubborn and go that way. It takes some years. But if the success comes, and this, the good thing is now our success there, therefore we are a little bit relaxed. And my advice was, work only with the people which would love to work with you. Don't convince anybody, because it's a waste of time. Either they want to work with you, or they should do their own route and have fun or whatever, but don't spend time to convince people, because this energy, I think you can save and put into the project in a good collaboration. And you will see you become part of a bigger family, which is growing. And theoretically, you have now an office in 60 locations across Europe, and your companies too. So this is something which we want to more develop. So I think a certain, maybe stubbornness is maybe the wrong word, but I'm coming from an area in the mountains where the learning curve is very, very flat. So we had, and Alberto Reins, and a lot of talent, and there's a lot of talent in Poland. Yes, therefore you have it all. It's up to you how you build it together. It's really up to you how you build it together, and say, we go that way. If somebody wants to leave, fine, but you have to continue your way.
Thanks.
Okay. Kinga, Piotr, if you have any question, don't hesitate. If not, I will just ask a question from the participants. There are a lot of them. We don't have time for all, but I'm a host, so I can choose one that are interesting also for me. So maybe, okay, Kinga, please.
Yeah, I had. So it's gonna be quick. First of all, I love your presentation and the values that you spoke about. I think we need to repeat it to ourselves day by day, because it's even in pandemic, it's not, or maybe especially now, it's not easy to remember about the values. And one comment, I studied management. That's my master, and I didn't have leadership. No one taught me that one. It's day by day experience, and I think many CEOs, many higher level managers struggle with that because we focus on tasks, and especially in startups life, we focus on tasks, we focus on KPIs and our investors, not on cooperation, not on leadership. And that's something that I know some startups struggle. Anyway, I wanted to ask, you mentioned the client, and for me, it's super hard to explain large companies, explain public administration, why to use space. I use many examples that Iza is, for example, the Catholic Church you mentioned about, and many others that are in the reports. Day by day examples why we need to invest in space, but still it's simply hard because the investment is risky, because it's you have to be patient to see the return, and still we need to explain everyone why we need investing in space, why they might use space application to basically make our own business more successful. Any advice how to address large companies and public administration
so
to encourage them?
Yeah, the good thing is, and it maybe this argumentation is changing over the years. 5 to 10 years ago, it was much harder. Today, I would say, if you're not part of it, you're like Kodak. Your choice. Good luck. Yeah. So in evolution, if you like it or not, there are two pathways: dying or involve. Yeah, you may pump money like the German government install coal subvention, but you know what? Mankind has not enough money to cheat nature, so it doesn't work. So it's a matter of a couple of years that you run out of cash. So if you don't take the digitalization on board, don't do it. If you're happy with your 5,000 people stay like there, you become a bank like Siemens or whatever. That's fine. If you're not interested to involve, then it's the wrong partner. So this is where I would be even black and white. So if you know the tree who stopped growing has started to die, you know what you do with trees before they become fully obsolete? You cut them, because then at least you can make firewood wood out of them. Otherwise, it becomes cheap firewood. So never say, if you're not investing in R&D and new technologies, you don't. Look to the German car manufacturers. They were also sleeping. They were lucky that they had the diesel scandal, that they were shaked. Otherwise, they would continue to sleep, which is normal, because many of us are on autopilot. This is what I mean. Who's your chief devil officer? If you're not being this paranoid and what we have to do before the crisis, where I say, you don't have to do that. Then you just disappear. Yeah. So even the Catholic Church has a hackathon. So because they say they think global over different timescales, but that's something else, is another lecture. But and therefore, I think you say space today is everywhere, in every cell phone. You use it every day. Every bank uses space, telecommunication, Earth observation, navigation. Every agriculture. So we're working with a cooperative in Germany called BayWa. They make just 15 billion euros in revenue. And the Austrians, which is a counterpart, Lagerhaus, I think they make about 7 billion. They have a robotic challenge. They just bought a couple of years ago some companies which we supported, because this is the reason why Google develops agricultural robots class. So agriculture definitely use space every day. EGNOS, this is the biggest community of the EGNOS users. So you can say, we don't do that, fine. And I would maybe be a little bit more black and white. 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years ago, maybe you had more explained. I said, well, there are enough people now investing in space, enough. And when you have a car, if you have an aircraft, terrestrial communication will be not enough. You need a backup channel. There will be no autonomous flying, shipping, driving without space. Navigation, that means GNSS and telecommunication. And Earth observation. Anyhow, that's big data. This is Allianz uses it, AXA uses it, Münchner Rück uses it. That's standard. All the Wall Street companies doing analyze are using that. So this is huge. So therefore, I think I said, well, this is who is using it. You want to be in that part, which go into the future, or you want to be building steam machines. Your choice.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know if you have a few more minutes to answer a few more questions. Yes. We'll one or two more questions. Okay. So first one will be from Łukasz Wilczyński. What do you think about the new space business models focus on the moon, like PT scientists were offering?
Yeah, PT scientists, I know they had a reshuffling because they went bankrupt and restarted, which is good, which is not bad, huh? So if you fail, you restart. Again, I think it's not a matter of technology; it's a matter of business cases. And I think we have one company it's the Lunar Resources Register. When we can trade orange shoes in 18 months or corn in 2 years, why we cannot trade resources on the moon, on Mars, or asteroids? So I think it's a business model. So why we not, and this is the thing where the government and the agencies come, we should not pay, as my personal view, it's like when you're in Warsaw, you don't have your own power plant. You go to a company provides you with power, with water. So you have a company takes care of the sewage. So you give a contract of services. And I think this is the way we have to think about it. So when maybe you're not allowed to sell moon, but maybe you can lease moon, including power and oxygen, whatever. I think we need other models. And we have the first companies thinking about printing in space, fueling in space, transportation, communication, navigation on the moon. So we have think about more a service-oriented model where you buy a service in the state, has to go in the investment part. And they say, well, I do a contract via international or tender saying I need X power and X oxygen for the next 5 years or 10 years, and this is the amount. So I think this is how we have to deal with it. That would be my approach. And this, I think, was also breaking the launcher industry, because the old business model of launcher was buying the launcher and throw it away. And DOD and NASA, Department of Defense and NASA, invested, I think now it's about 3 billion even, in NASA because they changed the business model. They paid for payload. So when they only look for the payload, it makes sense to recycle the rocket. So it's just the changing of the business model. So, and I think this is what the business model counts. And we have that in so many times, in so many companies where there is no new technology. The internet was existing. Look to Google, it was the auction of the requests. So, and I think you have to think much more about the business model. And the business canvas model, which is invented by Mars Osterwalder and his colleagues, comes from Switzerland, not from the Silicon Valley. So we have even great tools out of Europe.
We had a webinar with them sometime
yeah,
ago, also including the WeInnovators club. So yes, this is a great example for that. Okay, last question, because I know it's late. So just a comment, because you're expert in investment. There is a question from Marek Krawczyk. How would you comment on the situation where venture capitalists in US, Asia, and Europe reacted to very differently to the COVID crisis by increasing investment in space-related companies in US, in Asia generally, but decreasing investment in Europe? I don't know if the values are true, but it's how would you comment it?
Yeah, this is I heard this discussion we had very long. When you see, of course, you have more, I would say, trends to invest in the US, because this is where they come from, and people create companies to sell it and so on, which has also the drawback because people are not as loyal. I think Asia is coming tremendously. I'm sitting as a mentor of Accelerate in Singapore, so this will come. and this is also an area where you need telecommunication, by the way, because with a lot of islands, you will not connect them via fiber always. I think it's up to us. I'm a realist, but believe in miracles. When you see you pay for a good aerospace engineer of $250,000 maybe in the US, in Silicon Valley, but you need the money because everything is so damn expensive. $250,000 in Portugal, I'm not looking now to Poland, you get an army of good educated people. So I think in Europe we have great universities, we have great entrepreneurs. My feeling is we are a little bit too shy. You know, we do not sell. So I think our companies have better evaluation, better technology. Maybe we do not have so much money, but we're also not selling that proper. So I think we can be a little bit more proud of what we have. ESA is doing an amazing job. Yeah, and our colleagues, our national industry is doing amazing. We can be a little bit more proud and more risky. But this is a typical, I'm saying that also the Germans are who's guilty. So you have to penalize somebody. I don't know how it's in Poland, you know, because that instead of saying, hey, come on, shit happens. So, I think this is the mentality which has to change. So Alberto will remember it. We had a fund and it collapsed. Bad luck, lead investor, part of the royal family was not giving that money, which they promised in contracts. Okay, you can sue them. Try to sue somebody in Malaysia from the royal family. Good luck. So I was grilled by the Germans and by the British delegate, and the French protected me then later. And Steve Jobson, which was the guy who was giving Elon Musk the money for SpaceX, said, Frank, great. That was the right thing to do. Okay, you failed, but you were ahead of everybody else with your team. So therefore, it's part of it. Failure is part of it. And we were maybe falling down, and others said, okay, I stand up and try it again. So I think we should, this is this failure culture, which is maybe our problem, which goes back to the trust. So I think we have enough money in Europe, damn. In Poland, in Germany, in UK, we have enough rich families. So now we have to turn them and say, invest in new tech, invest in new startups. And I think this has changed the last 15 years, 20 years. Huh? So it was becoming better. I remember the first commercial company in Hungary was it not Nemetschek? No, Nemetschek and Graphisoft. So the guy was going into university. I said, you people, what are you doing? We are a commercial company. Yes. So I think that has changed. I think now we have great companies, great talent. It's up to us to put it together.
Okay, thank you very much for all the answers, for a great presentation. We hope for future cooperation.
All the questions, but
we will try to write them down, and later maybe try to answer some of them, which will be for you the best one, and hope to see the others.
Two things for all the industry: help the ESA BIG to be successful, because then you become a big family. ESA rocks. Oh, thank you. We have more to offer also for existing SMEs and startups. We'll be taking care of that. And drop me a LinkedIn if not done, so I can see your career and can knock on your door, that I can also get advice in the future from others.
Great. Thank you very much.
Frank, thank you very much for your presentation and for your time. It was really a pleasure. And I really believe this is the last few meters to have ESA BIG in Poland. So we are very, very close. Sorry for the long time, but we are there. So
doesn't matter if it better take that good time in the beginning. There's a lot of engineering, all the brain in the beginning, because when it goes into operation, it has to run.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you all attendees. I have to say that on all medias we have more than 250 people. Wow. So you are quite popular in Poland now. Thank you very much. And Pavel, could you tell who will be next guest?
Yes, of course. At the beginning, I would like to say that I'm still very impressed with Frank's presentation. In our series of webinars, we are used to large dose of inspiration, but The one we got from Frank is really amazing. We hope it will be the same next Wednesday. We will meet a special person, a person who made history, a person without whom this meeting couldn't take place. This is Vinton Cerf, co-developer of Internet, father of Internet, currently vice president of Google. So we invite you to the meeting on Wednesday next week. Goodbye.
Okay, so thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. We have
Bye-bye.
a short film. Bardzo dziękujemy. Do zobaczenia. See you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.